Everybody, welcome back to Wicked Good Sports. This is At the Buzzer, and we're joined by Ryan Flint. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm good, Brian. Thank you for having me. I guess it's on my own show now, but
Yeah,
I'm,
no,
I'm
it's
a,
first episode without
all
Jack. It's
right.
like training wheels off. We're gonna talk about Celtics here. Ryan, the Celtics had a tough offseason, let's say. Very interesting, but we're now through the preseason, about to tip off on the regular season. How do you think the Celtics responded on and off the court to that offseason?
So I'd like to stay on the positive and say it was an up and down off season, right? It started really up.
Mm-hmm.
We got Brogdon and Gallinari. People just in general, I feel like felt pretty positively about the Celtics. With their team as is, they could address the concerns such as like the turnovers, the
Mm-hmm.
inconsistent shooting, Tatum's alleged collapse in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
However, obviously, then there was the whole. Well, first of all, Dario Gallinari, he gets injured.
Mm-hmm.
That was big, and then Ime and it all just kind of came crashing in a similar fashion. I'm sure it felt for you as a Dolphins fan this season. That's right.
Anytime the Dolphins are up, I just expect it all to come crashing down. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very, it's the Dolphins have traded me to what has been happening with the Celtics. It's like, oh yeah, no, of course, their coach would get fired or suspended for having an affair with like an intern or whatever. Like, why would a good thing continue to happen for one
So
of
like
my favorite sports teams?
yeah, you dealing with the Celtics still after the Dolphins is kind of like having a shot after a night of just like binge
Mm-hmm.
drinking.
Yeah, just like what one more? What could it be?
Hair of the dog. It's easing you back in.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I'm in my element. I'm ready for the regular season as much as any of these
Yeah.
Celtics players are.
But yeah,
That's for sure.
so like I said, on the positive, it was up and down, and
Mm-hmm.
I was only concerned very briefly. Like obviously, there's still concerns there, but the preseason, the team overall, looked really good. I would say. Mike Mazzulli, like he's looking solid.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to really be attuned to what they were doing last year, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of picking up where they left off. We also don't know with like assistant coaches, right? He's been with this team for a while. Brad Stevens really fought to keep him. We don't really know how much of like the planning and all that he was a part of, right? Like some of the tactics they're using, he could have actually just come up with himself, not him.
Right.
So there is that, and yeah, no, I'm feeling pretty good about them. I do think, obviously, down the stretch, we're gonna have to see with like Missoula making adjustments because
Mm-hmm.
right, the team looked pretty good coming out of the preseason. Jalen Brown in particular is looking especially dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have heard some people think like Tatum still seems a little weary.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue more. I think he's kind of just continuing to develop as a player. We're seeing him a more complete player. I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you the last preseason game, he played less minutes than Brown. I think he had like one less point, but then he had like, like something like 7 assists, 9 rebounds. Like, just looking like a total player, letting other guys have the ball. And, I think I'm hoping he's going to be ready to pounce when they need him, like kind of like
Yeah.
letting these other guys really get going. And then, you get overwhelmed by Brown with Brogdon. And then all of a sudden Tatum's just coming out of nowhere. And,
Mm-hmm.
you really can't stop him when he's trying to get to the basket when he's on.
Right. On I guess that wavelength, is there anyone who like surprised you positively for the Celtics in the preseason?
Absolutely, yeah. A few players actually, which is awesome. Obviously, the first one, I feel like that had some buzz with Sam Hauser. First 2 games, I want to think he must have shot at least like I made at least 10 threes.
Mm-hmm.
Shooting like 70% the first 2 games, which is absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
not,
like
not
crazy.
sustainable, but like good to see.
No, not at
Yeah.
all. And then I know the last game he cooled off. He went 1 for 7, But on the positive, I think he still was he was snagging rebounds, he was hustling, he was
Mm,
in the mix. That's kind of good with like these kind of 3-point specialists who people generally think is limited to see that even when his shots aren't falling, he's going to try to impact the game in other ways.
mm.
And he was able to, maybe not in the fashion of some other players, but given his high, say hi to Cheddar, everyone.
Cheddar, as everyone knows, if they've paid attention, our other new co-host
Yeah,
here. She has lots of hot takes on the Celtics, obviously.
she does. She does.
Mm,
She keeps my even keeled personality. We're like we level each other out.
mm,
No, but yeah. So he was the big one, and then I would also actually say Noah Vonleh. He was so. I think like Jack was kind of big on Luke Cornett. I'm
mm.
not sure how serious that was, but the guy
I feel
who's
like
really
it's a little tongue in cheek, but
yeah, for sure. But the guy who definitely has kind of shown up in the preseason more as a backup big was Noah Vonleh. I know. I think the third game he had some really impressive stats. He had almost like 10 rebounds
mm,
and like maybe like 18 points. I could be wrong there. It was just looking like really solid as like a backup big. And then this last game, he played less minutes than Blake Griffin, but was like more efficient.
mm,
Was getting rebounds, playing defense, kind of doing everything you'd want on that end. And I think we really can go with the starting five that you saw in the preseason a lot, which is Smart, White, like Brown and Tatum. Can kind of big honestly can switch pretty
mm,
easily, and then Horford at the five, and then you got still even without Rob Williams and Gallinari, you have a decent amount of depth coming off the bench.
mm.
Guys that can play multiple positions, and I'm not feeling to the fact that we have Grant and Nova on there that can kind of come in, and that Blake Griffin's so far I believe he can come in for like 10, 15 minutes, that kind of a thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think that all could work really well.
Definitely. So, what do you expect? I guess how do you expect the Celtics to start in this first week or so of the season?
Um, so the first game's tomorrow against Philly.
Mm,
I would, I think they're going to show up, but I would say wait and see and don't put too much stock in the first game, right?
mm.
You're going up against a really good Philly team.
Yeah,
If they're
that's true.
out, and if there's one thing we know about Embiid and Harden, while it's been questioned whether they can show up in the playoffs, these
Mm,
guys can definitely show up, especially at the start of the season, right?
yep.
When things are easy,
Mm,
and then they got Tyrese Maxey. They have a really deep bench this year. They got role defenders, right? They signed quite a few pieces over this
mm,
offseason. So I would say, yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup for us also without Rob Williams. And, ultimately we are a little undersized in some aspects.
mm.
Um, it's a good matchup to kind of see how we do with like someone like Joel Embiid, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, like you said, the Sixers are more than likely, barring injuries, going to be there at the end of the season. They're going to be
Oh, yeah.
a team that the Celtics are probably going to have to overcome at some point to advance back to the finals. Anything else that you wanted to touch on that we haven't touched on yet?
I forgot to, obviously shout out the new addition to the Celtics with, Malcolm Brogdon was looking really good. If anyone has any background on him, he's a pretty known like shooter and
Mm,
scorer, like energy guy, but also has good playmaking ability that's most of what he was displaying, kind of
mm,
showed. At least right now, he's willing to come off the bench, and he was just creating so many opportunities that I think like between the defensive core, the offensive weapons we have, him coming in and just like opening up the floor more is
mm.
going to be really big.
Awesome. Well, I know you're not a big social media guy, but you have been blogging lately. Do you want to kind of plug those blogs?
Sure, yeah. So for our Wiki Good Everything sports blog, I've posted my Eastern and Western Conference predictions. I ranked every team from first to last. I'm still posting the Eastern Conference. We'll move to the Western Conference. I provide a win-loss record rating all of that stuff.
Yeah, so going deep on the predictions, which I think is good. I mean, I do the same thing for the beginning of the NFL season so far. Not super accurate on my predictions, so hopefully
Yeah,
your
it rarely
predictions
is.
are a little better than mine.
We'll see. I mean, the wins and losses is where it gets tough. I
Yeah,
actually did. I did make sure. I did make sure I hit the exact amount of wins and losses you need in an NBA season,
that's good.
which was
It's
tough.
always
But then I switched it up a little bit, so we'll see. I was like, I'm not adding all this again.
right.
But
So if you're interested, as Ryan said, he's still ongoing. It's beginning of the season, no rush to really get that out, and we definitely do need content pretty consistently on there. So yeah, go check it out. wickedgoodeverythingsports.com. Ryan, thank you so much for your time,
yeah, thanks for having me, Brian, as usual.
and we will see you all in the next one.